Getting in your own head is the specialty of what I do. Except I try to help people get out of their head. Because people are in it, they go down a downward spiral, they misinterpret a message, they say something they don't want to say, they say the filler word, they have a hiccup in the conversation. I've already had a couple hiccups in this conversation, but I'm not going to just go double click on it and just go all the way down. That's not going to be beneficial. I just run with it. I just be me the whole time. I mess up, it's okay.
You know, what's so amazing to me is how every opportunity that I've had come into my life and that I know other men have come into their lives all starts with a conversation, and yet there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of formal conversation or education or resources around what every single human being uses every single day of their life.
Yeah, you hit it on the nail there, Ryan. I mean, when it comes to communication, when it comes to conversation, literally, without exaggerating, one conversation can change your life. Whether it's having that tough conversation with your boss, whether it's you trying to ask the girl out, whether it's you trying to ask for a raise, everything boils down to the words you say. But most men, they haven't had the proper training, they haven't had the proper guidance, and they just sort of wing it. Or they'll just ask friends, and that becomes their belief system for the rest of their life.
When you say they ask their friends, what are you saying? Like they would ask their friends how they come across or how they present themselves? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, so it's either that or they ask their immediate circle for guidance without questioning whether that guidance is even accurate in the first place. See, every one of us is influenced by our genetics, our immediate circle, the way we were raised, our cultural upbringing, so on and so forth, right? So what I'm saying is, without ever being exposed to some of the proper principles, which is what I try to educate using psychology or behavioral science, a lot of men live their entire life without ever reaching their maximum peak potential, because communication goes hand in hand with confidence. In order to communicate effectively, you have to be confident. And when you are confident, you communicate effectively.
Yeah, it's like asking somebody who's severely obese or out of shape how to become strong physically. It's just not going to work. It's laughable in that circumstance, but when it comes to communication, well, you know, I also imagine it's so much nurture as opposed to nature that we don't even think about it. One thing that blows my mind is that every person's voice is made up. It's not actually your quote unquote real voice. Which is why we have accents, which is why we speak different languages, right. Which is why men who probably grow up around women probably have higher voices than men who grow up around men predominantly, because it's not so much nature as much as it is nurture.
Yeah, that's well said. And I, you know, I'll take it to the next level. I grew up in the Bay Area, right? California. Growing up here, people always would say things like, "What the hell?" or "Get the hell out of here." When I lived on the East Coast, I lived in New York for a couple of years, nobody said the word hell. Nobody even phrased things like that. And then it just dawned on me, I mean, I already knew this, but it just dawned on me even more so that, wow, wait a second, our surroundings plus our genetics has a massive influence on us. Sometimes we focus so much on the nurture, I apologize, the nurture instead of the nature, how we are raised, our genetic disposition, so on and so forth, that we kind of underplay that.
Yeah, it's wild that you wouldn't use this incredible tool called your voice to project confidence, to ask for what you want, to communicate something about yourself. We all put our clothes on every single day, and you pick the clothes you wear because you think it says something about who you are to other people. Yeah, we don't think about it when it comes to our voice.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the first exercises I sometimes work with my clients on is I just ask them, film yourself. Just film yourself. And they're like, well, you know, I'm not posting on Instagram. I'm not posting content. I'm like, no. This is not about posting on social media. I want you to see how you talk, because you think you know how you talk, but you don't really know how you're coming across. And just that simple exercise of filming themselves, whether they send it to me, which is what I asked them to do, or they just watch it themselves, boom, big revelation in their head. Wow, I actually had no idea that I sound like that. I had no idea that I don't make eye contact. I had no idea I use this many filler words. All of this is impacting your perceived credibility and intelligence.
And let's say somebody decides, hey, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and film myself after this podcast and read an excerpt from a book or something like that and just see how I communicate. What is it that they should be looking for? I know for myself, one of the traps that I often fall into is my pace is very fast and I have to be very deliberate about slowing that down.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that. That's one of the common things I see sometimes, and this may not be you, Ryan, but sometimes it could be related to a fear of having the silence. A lot of men fear dealing with that. They think it's awkward. They think they're being judged negatively. So I would say something as simple as record yourself for 60 seconds, maybe talk about something that you know well, so you're not worried about the content of the subject matter. And the two things you should immediately try to be conscious of, which is the two lowest hanging fruits, is remove filler words, like, even things like basically or essentially. Sometimes those are hidden filler words. We may not even know it. And I didn't know that until much later. And then second is intentionally pausing, feeling that out. Very similar to exposure therapy. Feel it. Marinate in that silence. And you'll see it's actually not that bad. And if you watch some of the most powerful speakers in the world, they marinate in the silence. Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, they own it. That's what gives off their leadership aura. Everybody's waiting. What are they going to say next? It's almost like a movie trailer, right? The movie trailer before the movie. Let them enjoy that.
The filler words are interesting to me because I can't think of what they are right now, but there are a few crutches that I have. And when I do a podcast, I actually go back, actually is probably one of them. I go back and listen to my podcast with a critical ear. What questions could I have asked? What did I miss right there? Where could I have gone deeper?
Right.
Where did I stutter? Where did I go too fast? And I'm trying to be very critical in a constructive way. I was listening to an interview that Kamala Harris had done, of all people, and one of her crutches, filler words or phrases, is in terms of. I recognize that. She'll say something and she'll say, in terms of how this goes. And I think what people are doing is not only the fear of silence, but are they buying themselves some time to think as well?
You just got it. I think it's more so the latter than the former. And just so you know, Ryan, you're doing an excellent job on this podcast so far.
I appreciate that. Well, look, I feel like I'm going to be critiqued if I don't get this right. So I'm going to slow things down a little bit and make sure I nail this.
You know what's funny is sometimes it's because of the nature of what I do, I have to consciously turn off my critique head. Because in my work, I'm always looking for the gaps of like, how can they improve, so on and so forth. It's not to say that I've mastered everything, but it's this idea of how do I just turn it off and just connect with the human being? So don't worry, you're good.
Are your friends weird around you? It's almost like watching a movie with a film critic. It's just not enjoyable.
You know, believe it or not, they haven't actually brought it up to me. Like, hey, are you critiquing me? I think they've just known me for so long that they have not brought that up. But who knows? Who knows what they're thinking? But yeah, for the most part, I'm always myself. That's one thing that I'm really proud of is I just try to stay 100% me all day long. And I feel like my friends recognize that. And so they are relaxed around me.
Well, that's an interesting thought. You try to be 100% you all the time. What is you as it relates to communication? Because there is a fear, I imagine, that a lot of people have that if they try something new with their voice or their tone or their inflection or their pacing, that they're not being authentic.
Well, at the end of the day, what we're doing here in my work with clients is helping them not change the content of the message, just how they present the message. So we're not really changing who you are. It's just changing the delivery mechanism. That's all it is. So for example, I could say something like, hey, Ryan, this is everything that I did yesterday. Run off a long laundry list. Or I could be like, hey, Ryan, these are the 3 things that I did yesterday. 1, 2, 3. And this is obviously a very, very simple example. As the listener, if I say, these are the 3 things I did, you know automatically, okay, there's 3 items coming. Then I say 1, I did this. Then you know, all right, there's 2 left. Now, you're just doing this automatically. And while the viewers may be listening, be like, well, that's obvious. it's not always obvious in high stakes situations. When a deal is on the line, when you're about to have a hard conversation, when you want to critique someone's report, whatever it may be. When nerves are up, all of this goes out the window. So what I try to remind people of is just, hey, there are only just simple adjustments you need to make. You just need to practice these adjustments. These adjustments then become part of your habit, and that habit becomes part of your identity. So we are never changing who you are. Actually, I appreciate you bringing that up, because that's one thing I don't want anybody to think, is that I'm asking you to not be authentic. And that's something that came, for me personally, it came with a little bit of aging. Like, you just realize, well, wait a second, I'm actually not going to be here forever. So why am I wearing a mask still? That's one thing I say a lot in my content. You may have seen. I hate people that wear masks, that just try to pretend to be someone that they're not. I can't stand it personally.
Well, and I think it's very easy for people to sniff out, and it comes across as disingenuous, and it really breaks down trust as opposed to building it up.
It does. And that's one thing where I would say as humans we're very good at, is sniffing something that feels a little fishy or feels a little performative, is people who are trying to be somebody that they're not. And we need authenticity more than ever today. More than ever. Just we're you see it in correspondence, in emails, on websites, on everything. ChatGPT messages, it's so obvious. It's all ChatGPT. Just one robot human is talking to another robot human. I'm like, what's going on right now? It's crazy.
Yeah, okay, so on the subject of the way that you're landing or resonating with other individuals and repackaging your communication style so people can receive it, I think that's the ultimate point. And then you can be influential to some degree with them. How much should you take into consideration the way people are interpreting your messaging, and what cues should you be looking for as to whether or not they're engaged in the conversation or they're disengaging or completely checked out at that point?
Yeah, that's a good question. To answer the first part, in terms of how your message is being interpreted, to a certain extent, you have control over that. But there's also a portion of it that's, right, this is a two-way street. I could say certain things, you could be distracted, you could lose interest, and that's not on me. So there's something known as Adlerian Psychology, where basically the idea is that is somebody else's task. You focus on your tasks. This goes hand in hand with stoicism as well. I'm just controlling what I can control. My thoughts and my actions, and in this case, my words. Now, how you interpret it, yes, I can help make that a little bit more crystal clear. For sure. In terms of answering your second question, what are the cues? The big one and maybe obvious one is the eye contact, right? If people are disengaged, if they're looking at their cell phone, if they're looking away. Other times, this is a little bit more subtle and advanced, is you'll hear people say this all the time. Oh, that's sure. Or yeah, that's right. Definitely. It's almost like they're just repeating copy and paste acknowledgement phrases, like they're listening, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. They hear what you're saying, but they're not really listening because they're done with the conversation. It is amazing, though, how often people don't pick up on that cue. They just keep rolling and rattling, and it's quite frustrating if you're done with a conversation, actually.
Yeah, it is. It is frustrating. And actually, on that note of listening, Ryan, it's interesting because something that I've worked on even in the last 5 years or so is really, like, if someone's listening, if they take their time to not only process what you've said, but how they're going to reply to you. It's obvious when someone's not listening it's obvious if someone isn't listening is when they reply right away, especially if it's like a complex question, because then all they're doing as you're talking is they're already preparing their answer as you're speaking. So that's like a little giveaway. Again, none of these are 100% certain, of course, but they tend to show a pattern over time.
And I've even tried to learn, and am currently trying to learn to be a better listener and the way that I receive information, because one thing I know about myself is when I'm concentrating or actually listening intently to the person, I know that I have a very stern look on my face. And people have said that before. Are you mad? And no, I'm not mad. I'm listening to you. I'm actually really enjoying what you have to say right now. But it is something I have to be highly aware of.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. And this kind of goes back to what we said. Just control the things you can control. We all have the face that we have. Now, obviously, for you or people that have this, for lack of a better word, fear of how they're being perceived. There's subtle things you could do, like just smiling that one extra time. Maybe just giving someone that extra boost of energy so they know you're enjoying the conversation. But again, you are who you are. And this goes back to our earlier conversation, which is own who you are. How they interpret it is on them. Like I know right now, even if you have this stern look, which hasn't bothered me even a second, I don't take that as Ryan's not happy with me. Ryan's not happy with what I'm saying or any of that. I just look at that as that's Ryan. He could have 1,000 things going on in his life. For me, to assume that it has to do with this is just a faulty mindset that only just makes me go down a rabbit hole, number one. Number two, it's even borderline egotistical for me to think of all the things that Ryan could be thinking about. He's thinking about me, 150%.
Yeah, that is interesting. I imagine also that it gets you in your head when you should be worrying about the message or the service that you're trying to offer to somebody.
Getting in your own head is the specialty of what I do. Except I try to help people get out of their head. Because people are in it, they go down a downward spiral. They misinterpret a message. They say something they don't want to say. They say the filler word. They have a hiccup in the conversation. I've already had a couple hiccups in this conversation, but I'm not going to just go double click on it and just go all the way down. That's not going to be beneficial. I just run with it. I just be me the whole time. I mess up. It's okay. Right? But when we get in our own head, it tends to be hand in hand with perfectionism a little bit. Perfectionism and also this idea of I fear what other people are thinking of me. This tends to be the root cause of most communication problems and why people avoid having even hard conversations or certain conversations because they're overthinking and they're just so invested in what others are thinking of them. And that's something I've even had to work on year after year. Just how do I, because some of this is obviously, this goes back to our hunter-gatherer days. We needed to be part of a tribe to survive. We can't just automatically hit a light switch and just be like, F everybody, I'm going to do me all day long. Catch flights, not feelings, this whole thing. That's out there. Some of that sounds cool, but it's not reality.
I 100% agree. I don't hear it as often as I used to several years ago, but so tired of hearing this 0 F's mentality.
Right.
I don't care what anybody else thinks. If they don't like me, that's their problem. Mm-hmm. And while I understand the sentiment, there are actually people that I care about what they think of me. I care about how my kids perceive me. I care about how my girlfriend perceives me. I care about how the people who are listening to this podcast perceive me. I'm not so arrogant to believe that I just have to speak and everybody it owes me their allegiance and their obedience.
Yeah, and you bring up an important distinction. I appreciate you saying that, Ryan. There's obviously certain people you want their opinion, the immediate family, the immediate tribe. But when you go and give permission and listen to everybody, then you go down a toxic rabbit hole. So I appreciate you bringing that up. There's a balance, which is most of life is find the balance. Don't go extreme either way.
I do like the visual of double clicking on that issue or that little self-conscious thought that you had, over indexing and just diving deeper and deeper and deeper. Just chalk it up to being a human being, you messed up and so on. You were talking about the Adlerian, I think it's pronounced Adlerian Psychology.
Yeah.
I was just introduced to that. I think it was in the book, The Courage to be Disliked, is where I picked that up.
It was in that book.
Are you familiar with what that is? Because I don't fully have a complete grasp on it because I just got to that section in the book.
Sure, to a certain extent I am. It's very similar to Stoicism in a certain way, which is the idea of how people feel about you, what they think about you, how they interpret your message, your communication in certain aspects is not your task. They use this phrase a lot, tasks. You worry about your tasks. If someone else is upset, that's their task. You just worry about what you need to do. So I want to say it's almost a simpler version of stoicism to a certain extent. It gives you the breathing room to relax, to have peace of mind, to know that there are only certain things that you can control. The rest of it you can't, so don't worry about it. Try not to get invested in it. So great book, by the way. That book, I've seen it multiple times. I think it came out maybe a couple years ago, if I'm not mistaken, maybe before that. But it's very popular. Even the title is very intriguing, of course, too.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't quite caught the stride. You know how there's a tone with every book, and
Right.
sometimes it takes a little while to get into. I haven't quite caught the stride on that book yet, although the subject matter is pretty good and absolutely relevant in today's society.
Beyond relevant, because everyone's trying to be liked, or they're trying to portray a certain image on Instagram, or they're trying to be somebody that they're not, all in the interest of gaining a higher status. Everyone's playing status games. Everybody. Mm-hmm. And to some extent, we're still kind of like kids in that regard, you know? Going back to the book, though, you're right. The way that it's structured, I know what you mean. I will say this, though. If I remember correctly, the way that it's written is different than a lot of books, because if I'm not mistaken, it's almost like a mentor and his protege, if I'm not mistaken, and they're sort of having this conversation
Correct.
that goes on chapter by chapter. I found that kind of refreshing, because I actually haven't stumbled upon a book that kind of works its way through this. It almost feels like real life, sort of like Karate Kid or something. So that was kind of cool, but I hear you on certain aspects of the book.
Well, just to pivot gears and switch up a little bit,
Yep.
you know, we talked a bit about how others perceive us, what cues we can look for. In your experience, because you do coaching with individuals that want to learn how to be better communicators, what are you seeing where most men are stumbling, common missteps, and then maybe we can get into the solutions and things to do instead?
Yeah, so this kind of goes to our earlier conversation. The two most common things that people struggle with are the filler words and fearing the silence. Literally, those are the two levers where if you just turn those on and be more consciously aware of them, that will significantly improve how you are perceived in terms of being a good communicator. Okay? Now, the other things that we need to focus on, this is a little bit more in depth, is auditing your stories, your belief system. Because sometimes in a conversation, a conversation is a two-way street, right? We're talking. I'm not giving a speech to you. I talk, then you talk, and we go back and forth. And it's very easy for me to be like, you know what? Why did Ryan just ask me that? Why did he look this way? And so what's happening is there is an event. That event produces a reaction in me, maybe frustration, annoyance, overthinking. That reaction then influences a story I've told myself about the meaning of that reaction. And that story then influences my next move. So what I'm getting at with all this is, after you've tackled the filler words and being better with silence, being okay with that, you next need to audit your stories. Where did they come from? How do you know this to even be true? And this is where a lot of the secret sauce is done, because most people never do that inner work, ever. They just live their life, assuming that how they see things is how everybody sees it. And it's just not true. And this took me a long time to learn, actually, because like most men, maybe you even can relate to this, Ryan. You know, you grow up, you feel masculine at times, you feel physically strong, you feel intelligent. It's so easy to kind of fall into this egotistical trap where, of course, everybody sees this situation the way I see it. It's only common sense. But even common sense is not common. Even that is influenced by the way you were raised, by your experiences, by your trauma, by what you had, by what you didn't have, you know?
You know where I see this play out? Maybe it's not so much in the realm of communication, but I've thought about this often. You're driving down the highway and a car pulls in front of you and cuts you off. And you immediately react. Maybe you flip the guy off. Maybe you honk at him. You think he's an idiot. You think he's an asshole. You think all the worst things.
Right.
But what you never think is maybe that guy just got an emergency phone call and he's racing to the hospital because his wife or kid is in the hospital. Mm-hmm. Or maybe he's running late for a crucial job interview and he's been out of work for the past 6 months and he needs to nail this interview. And I feel like if we're going to make up stories about the experiences around us, we might as well just make up a story that serves us rather than gets us pissed off and getting us to do dumb things.
Ryan, are you sure you're not a coach, dude? Because that was excellent advice.
Good. Well, good. I've thought about it here and there.
No, I hear you. I would second that. It is important to, if we can acknowledge that we have control over the stories, let's pick the ones that serve us. It's so funny. You literally are saying this story because I just told my parents the other day, I was at the gym, got done with my workout, went to my car. I'm pulling out of and I drive like a grandma. I do not drive fast. I'm not a car guy. I just drive. I just follow the rules. I don't even care to go fast at all. So I'm driving and I'm leaving my parking spot. All right. And so I'm just going really slowly out of the parking spot. Some guy speeds in front of me, slams on the brake. He wasn't looking. And then he suddenly sees me pulling out, slams on the brake, and then gets startled and he starts mean mugging me because what he realized is I think he had a cup of coffee or something in his passenger seat and it spilled. So he's blaming me for his coffee or whatever was there that spilled and he's mean mugging me, right? And so then he pulls over to the side, then he gets out of the car and I'm about to leave and I have to drive by him to exit the gym. And in my head, in seconds, I'm like, oh shit. What is this guy even about to do? Right
yeah,
now?
Here we go.
Right? And he's trying to provoke me. This is typical toxic male behavior, mean mugging. And this guy's an older gentleman. This guy's probably in his late 50s, early 60s. And I'm not even saying like I could have taken him or what. It's not even about that. It's just, do I even want to partake in this? So I drive right by him. He's mean mugging me the whole time. I just look at him for a second and then I continue driving off. The old Payam, 5, 10, 15 years ago, I don't know what I would have done. But the new Payam, I don't let that bother me. Because to your point, connecting it now to what you said, who knows what's going on in this guy's life? Usually the way certain people react in that sort of environment, they probably got some personal problems we don't know about.
Right. How do you practice this idea of recrafting your stories? Or at a minimum, just being aware of the fact that they are indeed stories. Are there exercises? Are there practices? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's a great question. One thing that I've tried to adopt in my life is this notion of anything that I want to change. And I believe James Clear talks about this too in Atomic Habits. I could be wrong, but I believe he does. Anything that I want to change, whether it's my fitness, my health, my communication, my stories, I need to first be aware of them, which means I need to track them. I need to track them somewhere. I need to log them somewhere. It doesn't need to be complicated. You can start with the Notes app on your phone, a Google Doc. Sometimes people get really overwhelmed with the tools. Oh, do I got to use Notion? Should I use this? I'm like, oh my God, just begin. How about you just begin?
Something.
Dude, yeah. And I got a little love-hate relationship with Notion too. So anyways, to answer your question, I would say first become aware of them by just logging them. So that's number one. You want to just start being aware of it because there's some magic that happens when we write things down. Instead of it just being this vague notion or this idea, you lose track of how often these things are occurring. But when you write them down, now there's evidence. Now you see them. Now there's no debate. It's objective. There's no room for interpretation. This is what happened. So that's number one, logging the stories, becoming critically aware of them. And then number two is auditing those stories by asking yourself, what facts do I have that back up these stories? What facts? Facts are objective. So-and-so said this to me. That's a fact. So-and-so looked at me this way, and therefore it must mean XYZ. That's not a fact, dude. That's a story. You made that up. So just even, it's a simple example, but that's something that happens all the time. And we all do this consciously. We have to, because we have to conserve our cognitive energy. We can't just keep going. We can't, it's not realistic to do this forever, but you need to do it for a certain period of time in order to create transformation and change the trajectory of the way you look at the world. But let me tell you, Ryan, there's no bigger ROI than investing in your self-development when it comes to how you look at the world. This is literally life-changing because it gives you inner peace. And I don't know of many more things that can give you high value than inner peace.
I had an example of this over the weekend. I was presenting at a men's event in St. Louis, and there was a guy sitting in the first row, and he looked so stern. He looked like I probably look when I'm concentrating, but he looked so stern. He looked mad. He looked like he didn't want to be there. And I was just like bound and determined to win this guy over, and he didn't crack the entire time. But I will say, he was attentive the entire time, and I thought, oh man, something's going on with this guy. Maybe he didn't enjoy the presentation, whatever. Anyways, he came up to me after the event and talked to me about a little bit about what he was dealing with, which was some very heavy stuff. And he was so grateful for the words that I shared. And in my head, even during the presentation, I'm thinking, this guy's not getting any value. He doesn't appreciate the message. He's not into this thing. And I almost considered trying to like shift energy to get him on board or bought in. He already was. I just misinterpreted his level of concentration on what it is I was addressing.
Yeah, that's interesting. How long was he having this stone cold face when you were presenting and you saw him in a total of what?
An hour.
No way.
An hour. The entire hour. I'm not even sure he moved, but he just sat there like a statue, and just piercing eyes and a stern look. What is going on here?
Yeah. No, that would have tripped up most people, Ryan. Good for you that you had the patience and the resolve to sort of just take a step back. You know, it's interesting you say that because there's just two sides to every story. There just really is. You know, it's so easy to think that your side of the story is the only way to look at things. And this kind of goes back to what we were just saying. But just in terms of creating change as fast as possible is just remind yourself there's always two ways to look at something. Always. Mm-hmm. And in the realm of communication, especially when it comes to hard conversations, difficult conversations, things you want to critique someone on, one of my best pieces of advice is don't do it through text or email. Do it through a phone call. Do it through Zoom. Do it through face-to-face. It's so easy to just pick up the phone, boom, send the text. But what we're talking about is everything can be interpreted a certain way. You don't know my tone if I say something to you. And your mood that day, the stories Ryan has, changes the way you interpret my message. So even, again, just taking it back, don't have serious conversations through text. Sometimes I work with people and they're like, oh, I want to give feedback to so-and-so. Let me do it through email because I can collect my thoughts. I'm like, yeah, I hear you. But you don't know how they're going to receive it. You're not there to see their facial expressions when they receive it. Most importantly, you're not improving. You think you're improving. That's another mask. You're just putting a little Band-Aid on yourself. You are avoiding the discomfort. But the discomfort is where we grow. With most things in life, the discomfort, that's where you grow. So you should be, I try to aggressively seek discomfort. I try to do new things all the time that I've never done. I'm just like, let me just do this. I run social experience all day long. Let me say it this way. Let me try this. Let me change this word. Let me see how they react. I look for it because I want to improve. I want to become the best Payam that I can be. I want to reach my maximum potential. I don't want to look back and have regrets. So I look for it because I just know it's something I've realized that looking for comfort doesn't really help you. We as humans evolved as a species by going through discomfort. Everything about you and your success has gone through the discomfort. My guess is, Ryan, that first time you recorded a podcast probably weren't as calm as you are now. Probably were a little bit uncomfortable. Probably a little bit nervous.
A lot uncomfortable.
Yeah. Now look at you, bro. You're a pro, right? You're so calm. You're so poised. You're so reserved, so grounded. How did you get there? By just feeling it, marinating in that silence, marinating in that exposure therapy of, this is what it feels like. All right, cool. All right. You know what? Not that bad. Not that bad. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again.
Do you feel like men avoid some of these difficult conversations. You know, you talk about sending a text or sending an email and not doing it in person because they're worried that they might get walked over, or their mind might be not necessarily changed, but they might be convinced to take a course of action that they did not initially want to take?
I don't know if I would say that's 100% accurate. It could be in some scenarios. I would say it's more so they are worried about having others dislike them and it changing the relationship and therefore disrupting the harmony at the workplace. So they take the L. They take the loss. See, that's a lot of things. That's something a lot of people don't realize, is that they're avoiding it, thinking that this is the safer, more conservative, better option. But really, in most scenarios, inaction is worse than action. Inaction is worse than action, right? And we don't think about that sometimes, or at least I didn't early on. And so I would say it's more so that they fear how the other person is going to respond and how it's going to therefore change the relationship. And, you know, hard conversations are hard for everybody. That's not something we're born with, right? It's not an easy skill to develop. That's something you really got to practice. That's one of the things I work with my clients on, is how to have that conversation, how to set a good intention from the beginning so things are good, things are smooth, and we role play it, we practice it, because you have to learn that skill of whether it's a personal relationship, a workplace relationship, conversation with your boss. There's gonna be things you don't agree on, and you have two options. Option one, you do nothing, but then there's resentment, then there's anger in you. You are on the lost side of the ledger. You may think there's no price. There's a price. There's a price. You're paying in peace. And some people have been paying it for decades or their entire life. Second option, you work through that discomfort. You practice. You experiment. You see, well, the worst case scenario, they don't really like me for a few minutes. They don't like me for a moment. As long as you approach it intelligently, from a calm place, from a structured way, you're going to be fine. But people don't calculate the cost of doing nothing.
I think that's a really good point. This is one of the common symptoms of the quote unquote nice guy. And everything's fine and harmonious until the nice guy feels like he's been walked all over just one too many times, or his level of discontent or feeling disrespected or feeling overlooked tips over that boiling point, and then it becomes violent and extreme and just a complete mess, and bad things happen when nice guys reach their limit. Yeah.
I think this is a perfect segue for me to bring in a movie example, Ryan. Have you seen Joker 1? Do you recall?
With
Joaquin Phoenix?
I've seen Joaquin Phoenix. I've seen parts of it. I don't think I watched the entire thing.
Okay, don't worry. It's all good. There's basically a shift, though, that happens where he's this quote-unquote nice guy. He does what everybody asks. Then I won't spoil the movie in case someone hasn't seen it. Something happens, and he snaps. And he goes from one extreme to a complete other extreme. And it's just, you said it. I mean, it's crazy. People, they don't even realize that they're doing it. That is the price of holding things in. I tell my parents, I tell my friends all the time, I'm like, I don't want to live that way anymore. Just don't want to live it. I don't want to live this life holding things in anymore. Now, that doesn't mean I bring up every little critique and disappointment and frustration all the time. Of course not. There's got to be balance, just like with everything. But if something, this is sort of the rule of thumb that I use, is if it becomes a pattern behavior, then I will consider having a conversation with someone. If it's a one-off thing, I let it go. Because we're all human. We're going to make mistakes. Friends are going to disappoint us.
Sure.
Family members are going to disappoint us. People are going to be late. I am extremely punctual, almost to a fault. All my friends know that about me. I will be there 1 minute earlier, always. That doesn't help me sometimes because gives me some anxiety. But they know that. I cannot therefore expect all my friends to think like me, but I used to. I used to. And so these are some of the things that I've just had to do the inner work on, audit myself, my stories. Oh, wait a second. Well, maybe they live their life a different way. Maybe they don't see it the way I do. Maybe they don't really care about being on time. That's up to them. Who am I to say how they should live?
I think one of the things that's helped me most, the mindset that's helped me the most, is that we often have these expectations of others. And that's what you're talking about here. Because I'm on time, they need to be on time. Expectations of others, rather than just focusing on personal standards, which is I'm punctual, I'm on time. Mm-hmm. What I do has no bearing in what other people do, and what other people do has no relevancy or base in what I do. Drop the expectations of others, maintain personal standards, and let it fall where it may.
Yeah, and recognize that these qualities that you possess are great qualities, you know? Yeah, I think it was...
Absolutely.
I think it was the Slack co-founder who said, make the implicit explicit. I love that phrase. It's so concise, but so crystal clear. I believe it's just part of their culture now. Don't hold the things in. Say it. Expectations are dangerous, almost like assumptions. Assumptions and expectations can destroy relationships. They literally can. And so you're right. I mean, expectations... It's poison. And if you do have an expectation, you got to bring it up. People are not mind readers. People are not mind readers, you know, but then here's the problem. They're afraid to bring it up because they haven't worked through the practice of bringing up something that bothers them. And so now we are in this cyclical loop of avoiding conversations, mismatched expectations. No wonder divorces happen. No wonder friendships end. I'm not saying that's the cure-all for everything. Of course not. I'd be silly to think that. But could be a big reason.
Sure. You talk about the proper mindsets and how so many men are lacking the mindsets when it comes to effective communication. I think we've talked about some of those, you know, the mindset of controlling what you can control, learning to rewire or reframe your stories. What are some other mindsets that a man ought to adopt in order to be a more effective communicator?
I kind of mentioned this earlier, but I'll mention it again, maybe in a little more in depth, and that is experiment like a scientist would. Run little tests socially or from a confidence perspective to start seeing that, okay, this worked well. This didn't work well. This was a good move. This wasn't. Over time, you'll maybe create your own frameworks of how to live your life and how to make yourself comfortable and more confident in scenarios. That's one option. Another option is just to remember, we're all human, you know? And sometimes we put people on a pedestal because of a title, a reputation, a certain status. But when you bring it down to a primal level, you can even just, it's silly. Sometimes I'll just think to myself, I'm like, do they use the bathroom? Do they take a shit? They do? Then they're human like me. Just like that. Just, oh, wait a second. They do? They're human. Not to say that I'm better than them, but that doesn't make them better than me either. And when you bring it down to that primal level, you're just reminding yourself, like, wait, at the end of the day, we're literally all human. That's it. We're all human. These are all status games. So pick your poison. You can go funny, comedic with do they use the bathroom? Or you can go with the scientist hat. Let me try things out experimentally. Let me see what works.
What would you say about... Well, let me give you an example. So
Sure.
When I started podcasting, I would write out 10 questions that I wanted to ask my guest. And I would rattle through those 10 questions, and I'd ask question number 1, they'd give me an answer, and then I'd move to question number 2, they'd give me an answer, and so on and so forth. The problem, I began to feel like pretty quickly I wasn't doing my audience any favors by doing it that way, and I wasn't honoring my guest by doing it that way, because they would answer a question that I could have went really deep on, but because I had a script in front of me, I couldn't do that because I had constrained myself to going to question number 2. And one of the things that I hear you talk often about is not having scripts. But how do you make sure that when you're either presenting in a professional setting, for example, or even just need to have a challenging or difficult conversation, that you cover everything that you want to have covered, and you maintain the composure that you want to maintain?
Yeah. So you're asking essentially, how do you ensure that you can continue the conversation smoothly without sounding like a robot, while ensuring you cover all the bullet points of what you want to talk about or get out of the podcast,
Correct.
right? Okay. So
Yes, correct.
Okay. So I have this method, and it is a method, but it's not. You only need to use this for a certain period, and then it just becomes habitual. It's called Zoom flow. Okay. And so, for example, your
Okay.
last two sentences, you said presenting, you said difficult, you said professional. Zoom flow is this idea of, all right, well, I could pick any one of those keywords, as I like to call them, and I can either zoom in or zoom out. I can zoom in and be like, what type of presentation are you talking about? What do you mean exactly? So I'll go really detailed. Or I could zoom out. Interesting, Ryan. So do you give a lot of presentations? You like being in front of crowds? So I'll go micro or macro, zoom in or zoom out on any of the words. And when you start doing this, you'll start to realize like, wow, I actually have more control sometimes than the person asking me the questions, because I can guide the conversation where I want. It's just a matter of practicing and going to whichever word you want to go to. So this is going to allow you to stay composed while also guiding, well, wait a second, all right, I'm talking to Payam. Do I want to talk about presentations? Do I want to talk about difficult conversations? Do I want to talk about professional relationships, professional communication? Just like that. Just finding those words, going in or out, and then letting it flow. Because I will say, and you're excellent at what you do now, but you can tell when someone is not comfortable with continuing conversations. You can tell. It's very...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was a software engineer for about 4 years, and that's something I noticed with a lot of engineers is, they're with the computer all day long. There's no knock to that. I also am a big time nerd too, but if you're with the computer all day long, therefore you are not with humans all day long. So you got to make it up in some way. And one of the quickest way, and I'm kind of going on a tangent here, is take off. This is another pet peeve of mine. Take off the damn headphones, bro. Take off your stupid white AirPods. Let people talk to you. You want to get better? Be approachable. You don't need to wear them all day long at work, at the gym, from your commute. I mean, no wonder you're not getting better. You're blocking people by design. So, there you go.
That is interesting, because I try when I'm at the gym, I try not to wear my earbuds, or I will do this sometimes. I'll wear one. I never wear both.
Oh, interesting.
Even right now, I'm not wearing both.
Yeah.
I usually will just wear one, because a little bit of that,
Sure.
I still want to be engaged and present in what's going on, but I might need to listen to something or research something. There's another tactic, I guess you could call it, strategy. I don't know what you would call it, but that I've used that has been helpful in my ability to communicate, and that's just a disagreement statement. So maybe you say something, I might come back and say, hey, Payam, I don't entirely agree with that, and here's why. What do you think? And that disagreement state, that's really hard. That's been hard for me to develop, but that has the ability to drive such a powerful conversation if people can use it respectfully and effectively.
Yeah, what do you call that? Framework, theory, principle, whatever you want to.
Just a disagreement statement, but I do it softly, not like you're wrong because you're an idiot.
Yeah.
It's hey, I don't entirely agree with that, and here's why. What do you think?
Yeah, the statement "you're wrong" is not a good way to build relationships. Not a good way to connect with folks.
Right.
But I love. First off, love the method. I may use that exactly verbatim how you said it. So I'll get back to you when I run my social experiments.
Let me know. Let me know how it goes.
We'll do. But the key thing that you said that I was like, Ryan knows what he's doing, is then you at the end, what do you think? What's your perspective? How do you see this most people in conflict scenarios or situations, they don't ask for the other side of the story. They assume, this goes back, they just assume their way is the only way. My way or the highway is the lonely way. So kudos for you for using that method, and also having the awareness that maybe that's something you didn't do and that you should do better, and you're taking stock of the other. Dude, we need to be able to have conversations. We need to be able to have friendly debates. We're not going to agree on everything. That's okay. Let's make it okay to have disagreements. You know? Unfortunately, sometimes it's we don't say anything, or we become like the Joker and we go extreme. We go psycho. And then you just lash out and you just go crazy, and then you kill the relationships. We gotta make it okay. Just by using the technique that you shared, just by asking the other side, how do you see it? Because they'll probably share something you didn't factor in.
Yeah, they'll give you more insight and more context, and then you think, oh, you see it this way because you had a horrific experience when you were a child, and it changed the way that you view the world. Got it. I wasn't aware of that before.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I might feel the same way if I was in your shoes.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a story, it's known as the subway story. There was a man on a subway. I don't know if it was the New York subway or what it was, but he was on a subway with his kids, and the kids were being really rowdy. They were just, I don't know if you've ever been on a subway or train, but they'll just be rowdy, they're loud,
Sure.
right? And when you're getting off of work, you could be tired, you just want to chill. Maybe you don't have your AirPods because you listen to this podcast. And so you're just chilling, and these kids are bothering you. And there was a guy on the subway, and he was getting annoyed by the kids. So he went up to the father, and he was like, hey, can you get your kids, can you get them under control? They're making a lot of noise. They're disrupting all the passengers. The father kind of wakes up from a daze, and he says, oh, you know what? I didn't even notice. We just came back from the hospital. Their mom passed away, and this is how they're processing the loss. That person went from anger, frustration, annoyance, self-compassion, or compassion for him and what's going on.
Sure.
Right? I've been in that scenario. Again, going back to the gym store, someone cuts me off, someone says something, someone reacts a certain way. We don't know the other side unless we ask.
Yeah, I think it definitely develops empathy and care for other people. And even some of those disagreement statements, those also build trust, I've noticed, because successful people, which is the type of people most of us listening to this podcast want to be around, admire courage. And they want to be around other people with a backbone and with a spine, and who are willing to stand up for themselves or share ideas that might be controversial. And every one of us runs around tiptoeing and walking around on eggshells so as not to offend anybody. And there's a way to do it, I think. But man, if you can disagree respectfully, high caliber people are going to respect that.
Yeah, it's well said. I mean, it's very similar to just having strong boundaries, right? Or just being honest, right? Sometimes conflict makes the friendship or relationship stronger. I would say more often than not, it does make it stronger, because now you really, truly know how both of you feel. I don't know at this age, I'm 40, I don't know at this age I want to have friendships or relationships where I can't be honest, because then that's not true to me. That's fake. This goes back to my whole philosophy of living life. I don't want to wear the mask anymore. I just don't want to wear it. So I want to be able to be honest with you. If that bothers you, maybe this relationship, friendship, whatever you want to call it, isn't what I thought it was. So I'd rather run the risk of being who I am, be honest, than play a game with you and wear a mask and try to breathe somebody that I'm not. I just can't do that. And it seems like you see it the same way, because we have to be able to communicate, even if it's tough, even if there's a disagreement, even if we don't see eye to eye. We don't evolve as a species. We don't get better personally unless we develop this skill.
Yeah. Well, I want to pivot gears just briefly.
Sure.
What's your take on small talk? I used to be so anti small talk. I don't want to hear about the weather. I don't want to talk about the game. I don't want to chit chat. And I've reversed that thinking, because to me, it's the small talk that allows for the bigger talk. But you have to break that ice somehow. I'm really curious what you have to say about it.
Yeah, I got mixed feelings towards it. I'm for the most part, I'm in agreement with you. It is necessary, because if you just go and go straight to the matter, straight to the deal, the transaction, then you're no different than ChatGPT, right? We got to connect as humans. And so that's where the small talk is. Now, yeah, it can be a little redundant. It could be a little bit fakey. It could be a little bit unnecessary at times. But sometimes you discover things you didn't know. Like I'll have sometimes talk with people and I'll ask them, you know, I had a call yesterday with someone who may be a client. He lives in Wisconsin. How's the weather in Wisconsin? Right? Maybe he says something that I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't know that. It's sunny this time of the year? Huh. Maybe I'll take a trip. You know, I'm just making that up. But what I'm saying is you'll discover things that maybe you never knew through small talk. So what I would suggest, and I know you're not asking me necessarily, but is going into it from a lens of curiosity as opposed to, there you go again. You're in the elevator, got to talk about something. Maybe there's something you can learn, something you can be curious about. All of a sudden that changes the game.
The elevator is such an interesting proving ground or testing ground for conversations, right? Mm-hmm. Because the social norm is everybody goes to the corner and we pretend like they're not in the elevator. Dude. Look the other way, don't ask them. It is such a powerful place to be able to strike up conversations. I feel like if you could do it there, you could do it anywhere. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely. It is, and these days, most people now are not even, they're avoiding you, but they're also looking at their phone. So now you have another barrier to get over, which is, do I want to disrupt them? And then if they're wearing their headphones, then that's the trifecta. Then you don't even know what to do. Then you just, no wonder people aren't making conversations. But I agree, especially because elevators are usually 30 seconds, 1 minute. If you're able to have some type of value conversation or start a conversation and then end it, yes, great point. I mean, in terms of experimentation, practicing, that's a great testing ground. Great testing ground. Or even cocktail parties, you pass by someone on the street walking towards you. You only have a few seconds maybe to chit chat, to make a conversation because they're going somewhere, you're going somewhere. There is testing ground everywhere. You just got to want it. You just got to look for it. It's there though. The question is, are you going to take it? Are you going to practice it?
And I mean, the reason I wanted to have you on the podcast is because I just wish more people knew that if you took those little moments to try to test your ability to communicate and become better at it, you're going to get more dates if you're in the dating space. You're going to get more clients if you're trying to build your practice. You're going to get more promotions. You're going to get hired more frequently. Better opportunities are going to present themselves. You're going to have more friends. I mean, the list goes on and on and on if you can do this effectively.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Peace of mind as well. Confidence. I mean, what's the point of working so much if you can't be calm inside, if you don't feel good inside, if you're ruminating about problems week after week after week? That doesn't seem like a happy life to me. And yeah, it benefits you personally and professionally. I think it's one of the great, I think communication and confidence kind of go hand in hand, like I said. I legitimately believe, Ryan, it is a superpower. Yes, you can work on your fitness. You can become strong. That doesn't necessarily translate to a lot of benefit with others, though. Yeah, you look in the mirror, you feel good, and yes, maybe you are a little more confident. I'm not denying the benefits of health, of course not. But what I'm saying is, in the interest of getting along, communicating with others, that is the superpower. I think it's a superpower we all have, and we can get better at.
Yeah. Well, Payam, one of the things I wanted to tell you, I think one of the genius things that you do on your Instagram page is where you critique movie characters, popular movie characters, and you tell us why it works. What about their character? What about their demeanor? What about their communication style can we emulate? And I just wanted to tell you, I really enjoy those because I know they're extreme examples that are portrayed in acting and multiple takes and everything else, but it really gives us an idea of how we might better want to show up as men so that we can package our communication style in a way that's received in a certain way by the people that we care about. I just wanted to tell you that. I really enjoy those.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I mean, that means a lot to me. It's fun for me to make. It seems to be resonating with folks. And, when you're right, certain situations, they can be extreme, but I'd rather look at movies that inspire me, that get me motivated, than look at some boring HR videos that we all were forced to watch at some company.
No doubt.
You know, all day long. Because movies can inspire us. They can get us emotionally riled up. They can make us feel good. We can look up to a James Bond. We can look up to a Batman. We can look up to a Pierce Brosnan. We can look up to these characters, and it feels good. We now have a mentor. We now have some goal, a visual goal. It's fun. Let's make education fun. So I appreciate you mentioning that, man. Thank you. That means a lot.
Tell the guys where to connect with you. I know you do one-to-one coaching. Let them know where to find you on socials and with coaching and everything else that you have going on.
No, I appreciate it. So the website is theconvoguy.com, theconvoguy.com, and then you can find me on Instagram as well, The Convo Guy. Instagram is usually where I post the most. Everywhere else, my social is just my name, Payam Pakmanesh, on LinkedIn and on YouTube. I may change it and make it more global, but right now, because Instagram is where I'm heavily producing content, Instagram's The Convo Guy, and then everywhere else is just my first and last name, and then the website is theconvoguy.com.
As you said earlier, the Convo Guy is definitely easier for us, but you know, it's so good marketing on that side of things for sure.
Appreciate it, brother. Thank you, man.
Well, brother, I appreciate you. I'm glad you joined us today. I know the guys are going to get a lot of value from this, and man, I appreciate your wisdom and what you share. It has definitely helped me. So thank you for joining us, man.
Thank you for having me, man. It's been an honor. I appreciate the conversation. Had a lot of fun with you, and thank you for the work you also do. We didn't really talk about you. You're on a mission yourself, brother. So I salute you to what you do, and it's very empowering. And I'm trying to learn from you as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.